Are you a business owner struggling to grow? Well, knowing the difference between debt versus capital could be a game changer. So stay tuned to learn more.
De Negocio es patrocinado por En Gente Connect.
Welcome to another episode of the Negocio, a podcast created with the intention to provide you with all the tools to help your business grow and take it to the next level. As you know, this is a production of En Gente Promotions under the direction of Gilberto Zazueta de Sone Imagen, and here you host Caroline Torres from the studios of Heritage Headquarters. As you know, this content is created with a lot of love, so we expect you to share it, like it, and follow all of our social media channels so you could learn more about Heritage Headquarters and Gente Promotions and all the entrepreneurs that are part of this community. Today, we bring an important subject, which is access to capital. Because did you know that the majority of businesses that fail is because they never tapped into this superpower, which is access to additional funds that allows your business to grow and again, have more access to opportunities that you need to keep going. Because of that, we bring you an expert on the subject, which is our friend Rick Solares, loan advisor, that is not only bringing you, again, information that is valuable, but an important tool to take you to the next level. Welcome, Ricardo. I was going to say Ricardo, for coming to this episode, to this podcast and sharing not only your wisdom, but again, tips on how to we as business owners could have access to something so important like money. So, bienvenido.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you for the invite. Thank you, everybody. I'm passionate about capital. I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs understand the difference between debt and capital, and really seeing it as a tool for growth, not a tool for downfall. And so, I'd love to, just get to know the audience a little bit better and be able to answer any questions and really, just segue into what our talk really is about.
Well, I know as a small business owner that, again, many times have seen other people talk about debt, other people talk about how they haven't been able to expand or grow their business to the level that they want to. I understand that there's a challenge. And I would like you to take some time and talk to us about some of the tools that you provide or the education or the information that you provide that could help our businesses, again, have access to something so desirable as cash. Well, I don't know cash, but, start seeing the way start changing the way we see debt differently.
Yeah, awesome. So a lot of times I have, conversations with business owners, right? Like I work primarily with business owners, and usually there's a struggle, right? Most businesses, all businesses are going to need money or a cash injection at different stages of the business life, right? You're going to have businesses at the very infancy that are basically going to need that startup funds to get operating, right? A lot of times people will ask family members, maybe they will save, maybe sometimes they'll bootstrap, which is a strategy of basically maxing out your credit cards to prove the concept of the business, right? But once you're cash flowing the business, when you're a one-person show or maybe a one-family show, your business gets to a point where it's starting to grow, right? And it's growing beyond your capacity. So you need to implement systems. You need to basically grow the system in order for the revenue to continue growing, right? This is where most business owners get stuck because they see the risk of obtaining debt, the risk of obtaining capital as something that's too far great to take a leap and jump. right? And so they continue to operate at the max level of operation as a business owner because they're doing everything, right? When we look at the way that businesses are recommended that should be opened, you're supposed to have a business plan, right? You're supposed to go, when we look at how Wall Street creates a business, right? Like when we look at models like Facebook, Twitter, big companies, yes, they started in a dorm room in a college. They started in a garage, but they started raising capital, right? They started asking people for money. They started going to venture capitalists, and obviously, there's a difference between a Facebook and our businesses, but it's the same concept, right? We're gonna need capital to basically create the structure and the system that's gonna allow our business to grow.
So now I know you mentioned going and doing all of this, but let's simplify it. What will be that first step? Like, okay, so I'm starting my business day zero. I know, again, we probably won't have the credit. Like you mentioned, we'll go to family members, we'll use some of our savings, we'll refinance a house, we put on the credit card. At what point do you think is the right time to start, again, going and accessing capital? Not the no, I don't want to say the conventional way, but like, at what point do we know that we're ready, or how do we get ready to start asking for money?
Well, I think that goes down to what we talked about at the very beginning, right? Like knowing the difference between debt and capital, right? Like everybody assumes that debt and capital are the same things, right? Like,
So what's capital? Let's start
so
there.
capital is money that you're gonna put in your business to make more money, right? Whether it's a short, quick turnaround or a long, quick turnaround, right? Debt is something that you borrow from a bank, you borrow from a lending institution, and basically you're using your income, whether that's a job or whether it's the business, to basically pay that back, right? A good example of that would be like, hey, I want to buy a family vehicle, right? Well, that's going to be a debt because you're not going to use that family vehicle to go and generate money. But a vehicle, they could be the exact same vehicle, but if it's being used for deliveries or if it's being used for generation of capital and it's going to be the primary avenue for generating the revenue, well, it makes sense to borrow that money because it's going to pay itself back, right? And so that's the big difference. They're the exact same thing. It's just how we treat it, right? Debt is something that ourselves are paying versus capital is something that the business is paying, right? And then to go back to your question, like where can people start? Well, I think it really boils down to, like understanding the different capital markets, right? One of the things that, we have here in America is we have access to capital markets, right? Like we have a really, really
What
good,
is a capital market? And I'm saying that I know what it is, but
Right.
I don't know if whoever is on the other
Right.
side
So-
understands what, like,
so
capital market.
a capital market, all it is just like, think of like a meat market, right? Like a place where you can buy meat, right? It's think of like a fruit market or like a farmer's market. Like, hey, I know every Saturday I'm going to be able to go to the farmer's market and get my favorite pastry, my favorite coffee, right? It's that availability of a product. Same thing, a capital market is just the availability of money, right?
Okay.
So we live in a country where the availability of money and the lending process is very easy compared to other places.
Well, that's
right?
not what the majority of businesses think, to be honest with you.
Correct, because a lot of times, so banks are very heavily regulated, right? Banks have to follow, lending guidelines, credit requirements, and basically, equal lending opportunity, right? So what a lot of people don't know is that banks, just like restaurants, they have a menu, right? They are companies that are in the business of making money, and they make money by lending it to you. They make money by investing it in the stock market and by doing their own private equity investments, right? And so when you understand the menu of the bank or what kind of businesses or what makes you more lendable, then you're able to access those markets, right? It would be like if I have pesos and I go to a farmer's market here in Arizona and I say, hey, I would like a cup of coffee. Can I buy it with 100 pesos? Well, it might be the same exchange rate, but they're not going to take my pesos, right? So we have to, in a sense, convert our currency to what the bank is asking for. And how do you do that? Through following just some simple steps.
And that's where you come in, because
Correct.
you basically will coach the business and say, okay, this is the exchange rate in order for you to be able to gain access to
Correct.
this service or this product.
Correct. A lot of times it's knocking on the right door or understanding where you're at. I always tell my clients,
Going to the right restaurant.
correct, going to the right restaurant. In this case, it would be the bank. So I always tell my clients, picture yourself that you are in a location and you want to get to a destination, right? You could take two approaches, right? You could walk up to someone and you could say, hey, I'm currently sitting in Phoenix and I want to get to LA. And the person can tell you, hey, all you need to do is you just need to start going on a west direction. Yes, that's not incorrect because you have to head west to get to LA. But what if someone told you, hey, I am at the intersection of 7th Street and Grant and I'm trying to get to LA. And they said, hey, you need to take the I-10 and drive the I-10 all the way out until the 5, and then you drive down to the 5 or up the 5 until you find, downtown LA, right? Like that's completely different because you're getting that specific guidance, the GPS tracking. And so a lot of times with capital, we assume, hey, I have my deposits at XYZ Bank. And so because I have a banking relationship with them, I'm going to go over there and ask them for a loan and they're going to give it to me. And sometimes that's the case, but most of the time we need to, just like taking a picture, right? Anytime you take a family picture, you're going to get all dressed up, you're going to get your nice suit on, you're going to get some makeup on, maybe comb your hair. It should be the same process whenever you're looking for a loan, right? You want to look your best in front of the bank. What is that going to entail? Maybe your credit score, maybe your business financials, maybe having things a little bit more organized inside of the business so that the bank feels more comfortable, giving you a loan. But most importantly is knocking on the right door. Because you are right, Caroline. There are times that you can go to a bank and you can say, hey, can I have a burger? And they only sell pizzas. And so they're going to say, I can't help you. It's not that they really can't help you. It's just you're not.
They just don't have that in their menu.
Correct.
I love the way you explain it, how you simplify it, because a lot of businesses, a lot of times they get discouraged, right? When they go to their bank and they decline them, even for something as simple as a business credit card.
Correct. Yeah. And there's different, like, we were talking about capital markets, right? Like there's even different levels of capital markets within the banking system, right? So you have like your big federal banks, and we know that there's like 4 or 5 big ones, right? And they're really great at lending in certain products, but not really great at lending in other products, right? But then you have your smaller regional banks that lend differently, right? Because they're regional, right? And then you also have credit unions, which are a completely different capital market, right? That, they are designed, to take on a little bit more risk or maybe open up the lending, window to more people. And then once you leave the financial system, so you're thinking, hey, like banks, credit unions, small regional banks, there's a ton of other capital markets, right? So there's private capital, there's lending against real estate or collateralized loans, there's lending against, other things like contracts, receivables, basically the cash flow of the business. So typically when we think of lending, we think of what the bank has told us to think lending is, but really it's like going to a marketplace, right? You can go and you can get your tortillas at, a supermarket, or you could go and get your tortillas at a bunch of different places, right? There's a difference in the price, there's a difference in the quality, there's a difference on the taste, right? And it's the same way with lending, right?
So the most important aspect, what I'm understanding, is that as a business owner, you need to have the opportunity to connect with individuals like you that not only is going to say, well, based on your taste, based on your position, where you at right now, these are your options. And I like the analogy that you use on the restaurant, because there might be a favorite restaurant in LA that the only way that you could get that food is if you order it and have somebody like bring it over in a plane or something. What I'm understanding is that you could still get that food. It might not be as fresh, but they just don't have it here. And
right. Yeah, I mean, and I like the analogy of restaurants because it's think of it, right? Like some banks are fine dining, right? So there's a dress code. You have to be a specific dress code to be able to go to that bank, right? I mean, they're not going to tell you that up front because it's equal lending, right? But they have a specific portfolio of clients that they're looking for, right? Or same thing, some could be casual dining, some could be fast food, right?
They might not have it here in Arizona.
Correct, right? So exactly.
Where you at.
So at the end of the day, is understanding where you are, right? Understanding maybe what your budget is or what your capabilities are for lending, right? And unfortunately, that information is not, common knowledge, right? Like we all know, hey, like I know that I need to start building some credit, maybe get some credit cards, maybe go get an auto loan. I know eventually, like it's more knowledgeable if people wanted to buy a home, say, that they know that they have to start building credit, right? But it's different, when it comes to other things, right? Like for business owners, like we just assume, hey, I have good credit, I can get business credit. And it may not always be the same, right? And again, it goes back to how capital markets work, right? So, for example, for buying a home, right? Like there's a specific capital market for buying a home where there's clear guidelines or there's clear boxes, right? As to how you can qualify to buy that home, right? And so that's why it's easy to people to buy a home, or easier than it's been before, right? Whether you're self-employed, whether you have, bank statements, or whether you have a, profit and loss statements, like you can buy a home using these capital markets, right? But when it comes to business lending, the market shifts a little bit because it's not big capital markets that are funded by Wall Street or the bond market, but it's basically done by regional banks. So whenever you go and knocking on the door for a bank and you're saying, hey, I'd like to borrow money for my business, the bank is essentially going to hold your loan. They're not going to sell it to the bond market. So they become more, not concerned, because they're always concerned, but they become a little bit more conservative, or they make sure, because, they have an obligation to protect people's deposits, right? And so they want to make sure that they underwrite. So our goal is understanding, hey, like what is the bank going to ask me, and how can I run my business really well, right? Because like I said, a lot of us, we get started in a business and we fall in love with the concept and we prove the concept and we start getting revenue. But unfortunately, some of these things where it's like, hey, like, am I organized correctly? Do I have an EIN number? Am I, doing my tax returns correctly? Did I set up my business correctly? Am I building business credit? Those are things that go and get put in the closet and are the least priority. But a lot of times when we get to that point where our business wants to grow, we need to revisit those items and make sure that we get those cleaned up.
And that's why I love the fact that not only that you are part of our community here at Heritage Headquarters, but you also have been an instrumental part of the business community within this organization, because you provide that mentorship of guidance. And it's like, is your credit ready? Is your income ready? Are, all the little boxes checking off to allow you to have that capital that you need to take your business to whatever level you want to take it, right? So we feel here at Heritage Headquarters and with the En Gente community, we feel very blessed to have an individual like you being part of our community, because again, I've seen you work. I've seen results in businesses that are in a difficult position sometimes. And I'm glad that, based on one of the conversations that we had with one of our members, was that, they didn't wait until like things got out of control. They went and they talked to you. And again, these are conversations that we're having openly because we are a business community that cares. And they went and they talked to you and you provided with a solution. Some of these solutions are short-term solutions. They're just like putting a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches, but at the same time, it's a solution.
Correct.
And it's about creating a game plan that allows them to move from point A to point B, and actually creating more opportunities for their business to grow or keep it under control.
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes it can be something very simple, right? I always tell people, and thank you for saying that, because I love helping people, right? Like I love solving problems, and I love helping educate people to understand, right? Like the only reason I know what I know is because I had the opportunity to work at many different banks, and I broker loans, right? That's essentially how I've come to learn this. I wasn't born with this knowledge, right? I don't come from a family of lenders, right? Where like my grandfather or my father passed down here's the lending book of knowledge, or here's, your lending family Bible. Like this is all that has been figured out from trial and error and just having a deep curiosity about it, right?
So now for those that have not experienced the En Gente community, that still want to work with you, that still want to get in touch with you because they need that extra push to take their businesses that are already running to the next level, how do they get a hold of you? How can we, how can they start working with you?
Well, I would say definitely come to, an En Gente Promotions event. Definitely following, Heritage headquarters, and then they can get in touch with me. There's a few different ways I'm sure that they can share, with you guys. I have an email, phone number. I also have an Instagram account. The biggest thing is, just reaching out, saying, hey, this is where I'm at. And this is where I'd like to be, because a lot of times we don't even know where we're at, and we don't even know where we want to be, right? Like we feel the pressure. Hey, I need money, right? Like I know I need to hire 2-3 people. I just don't know how to do it. Or sometimes it's like, hey, like I'm paying more than that I'm bringing in, right? I need to maybe restructure something like that.
Do you charge for consultations?
So consultations we don't charge for consultations. No, it's basically our way of helping people in the community. My goal is to educate more people, right? Like I know that our team is not going to always win all the loans. There may be somebody that, is ready and has already an established relationship with somebody else. The goal is just to educate them, right? Because there's going to be a point where they're going to be able to share the knowledge that we share with them with other people in the community, and that's more powerful, right? Yes, we generate revenue. We are a business. We do consulting services for businesses, but at the end of the day, the goal here is to educate and to help people become more aware of the possibility.
And to close the loan, of course.
Of course, yeah.
That's the goal. And I'm glad, again, that you have always been so open about providing tools and education and information to the community that is valuable. So thank you so much for inviting them to another one of our mixers that we actually host every month. We host a mixer of some sort. But we're going to have all the information for Ricardo of Rick right here down below, so you guys could connect with him, plug in, and again, take this tool that is instrumental for your business and please make it grow. So that is it for today, my people, mi gente. Iba a decir mi gente, but stay tuned for another episode of the Negocio a Negocio here. And don't forget to follow us in social media. Take care. Bye-bye.
De Negocio a Negocio es patrocinado por En Gente Connect. Síguenos en nuestras redes sociales En Gente Connect. Suscríbete, dale like y comenta a nuestro canal de YouTube En Gente Connect.